We're used to seeing one another at 5:45 in the morning when it's pitch black. Okay, guys, so just once again, 2 blocks, a strap, and a bolster or blanket if available. And I don't want you to worry about that if you don't have it. Hi.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
It might be on my end.
Can the rest of you guys hear me?
I'm gonna reconnect in.
I can hear you great.
Okay. I think it may be you, Miss Sora. Forgive me for saying that. Okay, good. I'm glad you guys can hear me. Anything in particular we need in the body today, guys, or just kind of the general? I know we've been working on some low back sensitivity lately.
I've been feeling it in my hips this week.
Exterior of the hips or interior of the hips? More like the frontal hip points themselves or the outside of the hips?
The outside, closer towards the back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Lots of very valuable and wonderful muscle groups back there. Lots of nerves too. So that tends to come into a lot of different places. So we can definitely work on that. Miss Zora, can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
I get that. I get that. Thank you for letting me know.
Can you hear me?
We'll work on all of it. Let's see if we can do everything, guys. We want to do everything, right? I mean, I want to do everything. That's just me. So if we're going to work on some general release of the back body, working on the exterior of the hips, and also working on some back in general, besides, of course, the meditation that we work with and the general sense of the release and grounding and letting go, I'm going to welcome you today, like we did last week, actually. A couple different ways that we can always start. But one of the easiest ways to begin to find a low back release tends to come from finding support, whether you have little cats running around or not. So if you don't have props, I'm going to welcome you to start a slightly different way tonight. If you have a bolster, you're welcome to incorporate that. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm actually going to have you take your mat if you're comfortable with it, and I'm going to have you fold it halfway, and then fold it again, and then fold it one more time. So you kind of see, besides Copa right there, who's apparently my yoga demo for tonight, Copa, everyone, Copa. So what you're kind of seeing is this little bit of a release on the mat itself. And so just so that you can see the anatomy of the body, it's really hard, especially because I always wear black and I've got my big sweatshirt on. When we start to try to release the low back, often some of it comes from the upper interior edges of the shoulder blades. So I'm going to invite you to start on your back in this position, but a little bit different, so that when you recline up and over that gentle roll, the bottom edge of the curled part of the bolster actually lines up with the bottom edge of your shoulder blades. It's going to be a very, very gentle back bend. And then remember, if the chin is tilted all the way up towards the sky, you can always put a blanket underneath the back of the head or a towel. And you'll notice that the front ribs will start to pop out here, which is actually what we're looking for, but only in this position. And to begin to release the low back, if comfortable for the outer hips, the inner groins, I'm going to welcome you to draw the soles of the feet together and allow for the knees to go wide. Remember, if this feels too much for your low back, you can always simply straighten the legs out and away from the crown of the head, or even bend both knees, draw the knees gently together, walk the feet out slightly, and that allows for a different anterior and posterior tilt in the pelvis. Taking the arms out and away from the body if available. And if your low back and your back ribs are very, very tight here, or if you have tight hips like me, you may notice that even this gentle, supportive, restorative back bend feels a little sticky. So as maybe the eyes close, the jaw unlocks. The tongue can remove itself away from the roof of the mouth. The palms softly draw up towards the sky. And the fingertips will curl in, no effort, towards the palms themselves. And then noticing where the tailbone is, the base of the spine that gently curves under and in. And if you could pull the navel in slightly, you'll feel the lower abs engage, and those frontal hip points will gently lift just a touch towards the ribs. Allowing for that unhindered, uncontrolled, natural cadence of the breath, but being aware of it. Noticing when the front ribs gently release upwards, where the breath travels. Does it move more into the side ribs, more into the belly? Or maybe you're a little more aware of how the back ribs softly press into the folded mat on every inhale. And as the body begins to settle down on the mat on this Friday in the middle of June, longer days, the sun is still far from setting, and it rose this morning before 6 a.m. Just being conscious of what the energy in the body is like. Can you give yourself the full and complete permission during this time of self-care to be just that? No judgment, no need to look like anything, no need to force the body into a shape it does not desire, nor is there a need to bottle and cap the thoughts of the mind. If you do tend to watch me during practice, you'll often notice I demo sometimes. So you're welcome to stay in your comfortable, long, laying down position, just as I come upright so you can hear me as I speak better. So we very much are living in curious times right now. We've probably heard the word unprecedented so many times that if we had $1 for every time it was written or spoken, well, maybe our lives would be very different. So when we come across things that maybe are uncomfortable, uncharted territory, we often find two distinct reactions. We either charge headstrong into the unknown, regardless of the mist or the windy road or the lack of light, or we retreat into a space that we don't come back out of until we deem safe. But often these spaces of safety, often these spaces of control are illusions. We call them koshas. And these illusions aren't anything new. They've been around as we exist as humans since ever we've had conscious thought. the illusion that we are our body, that I am determined or defined by the width of my hips, the size of my Lululemon leggings, the color of my hair, how I speak. But we have to remember often that these spaces of control and the desire to want to control past, present, and future is usually the root of all suffering. So when we find the opportunity to simply lay down, to simply feel the breath, to simply feel whatever is underneath you, carpet, floor, mat, rubber, lawn, pavement, instead of wondering what's next or thinking about what just happened, can we simply find a millisecond in which we experience the outer edges of the border of the corporal body, the physical body. But then also remember that how we react to ourselves, our body, those around us, and our circumstances change the energetics of how we breathe, how we think, and how our reality changes. With that said, I welcome you to deepen the breath. And not just because I'm suggesting it, but because maybe there's a curiosity about what does it feel like when my breath actually deepens? How does my mind react to that change? And how does my body react in turn? When we peel away the illusions, the Maya kosha, the Anamaya kosha, all of these external layers that are like little onions, onion layers to get towards the heart. We remember that the layers are not something we can control, and that the essence that sits at the center, the desire, the inspiration, is identical in every single one of us, regardless of what it's wrapped in. So as always, my friends, the choice is simply yours. Your reality, your perception, your sense of grounding, your sense of expansiveness, and the choice to react, whether or not we can see the future. If you prefer to invoke a very gentle Ujjayi breath or victorious breath, where the back of the throat softly closes so the inhales and exhales come out through the nose, I welcome you to do that. Or if it feels best to just simply focus on the elongation of the inhale and the exhale, that's a perfect place to be as well. A moment of silence just to drop into your bodies, remembering that in this moment, control or no control, we are all held and safe. A few more rounds of breath here. Last two inhales, exhales, as always, we'll take together. Big breath in through the nose. And a big exhalation, allowing for it to release out of the mouth if you desire, as loud or as soft as what you need today. Take another big inhalation, feel the side ribs. And the exhale, maybe it's audible, maybe it's not. From here, I even welcome you to keep the eyes closed if you desire, remembering at any time if that makes you uncomfortable. You can always float open the eyes and check your surroundings, or even watch your screen. If you've chosen for the soles of the feet to come together, knees open wide, navel tucks in, protect the low back. Knees will softly lift back up towards the sky. If the legs are long, just gently bend at the knees. And from here, keeping the left knee bent, sole of the foot down on the mat, we'll just gently reach up for the right shin, hugging the right knee into the chest, keeping the right foot flexed at the ankle. Maybe drawing it in a little bit deeper in towards the sternum, letting the spine stay long, navel is still compressed. You want the length of the low back. Big inhale. Big exhalation. And keeping the natural curvature of the spine, gently lifting the left leg, beginning to straighten the left leg, letting the heel float in space for just a moment, full control by the low abs. That's your safety belt for your lumbar spine. And the gentle release of the left heel down towards the mat. Right arm draws out and away from the body, palm faces the sky, root the shoulder head down. Inhale to lengthen. And the exhalation, simple single-legged twist, gently drawing over to the left hip. Remembering, listen to your neck, listen to your low back. It's not looking to draw the right knee down towards the mat. You stop where the right shoulder keeps wanting to lift. And then maybe you take the gaze away from the knee, allowing for a counter twist to happen in the cervical spine. Keeping the breath in the right ribs. The left quad is active. You're pushing the energy out between the ball of the foot and the heel, as if I could pick you up and stand you on your left leg, and you would be solid and strong. Taking one more deep inhalation, unhiking the right hip. And the exhale gently draws you back to center. We'll hug the right knee back into the chest. And if you have a strap, you'll have the option to use that here. Otherwise, beginning to open up the hips, reaching for the outer edge of the sole of the right foot, coming into half happy baby, Ardha Ananda Balasana. If this feels too much for your hip flexor, low back, you can always bend the left leg at the knee as you stack the right ankle over the knee and begin to draw that inner right thigh down towards the earth itself. We have a lot of choices that we have the ability to make right now. We always do, but the choices are on the front of every newspaper, every magazine, every social media. And so now the choices are right in front of us. They're no longer sitting on the sidelines. So in order to move forward, we often have to make challenging choices. We often have to make decisions that may make us uncomfortable. But as we often talk about, it is not the easy spaces that change us. It is the challenge that forges us and allows for us to shift, not from the outside, but from the inside, which in turn changes our reality and our environment. Taking another big inhale here. If the left leg is straight, softly bending at the knee, sole of the foot down on the mat. Releasing the outer edge of the right foot or the strap if you chose that. Coming into Supta 4, thread the needle. Crossing the right ankle over the left thigh. rolling the outer edge of the right hip down and away. And either choice to stay here, or you can reach up and interlace the fingers underneath the now lifted left leg, keeping both feet flexed at the ankles. If you'd like a little dynamic movement here to help massage the low back spine, you're welcome to. Or if you prefer for it to be stoic, just that gentle length of the spine as you fill all the sides of the torso evenly with breath. That's an option too. Taking another deep inhalation here. And the soft release of the left leg if it's floating down in space. See if you control it by the use of the low abs instead of it gently just floating back down. Uncrossing the right ankle from the left thigh. And from here, hugging both knees into the chest, Apanasana, knees to chest pose. Maybe there's movement, maybe there's not. Maybe you'd like to roll the upper leg bones in the hip sockets. That helps to loosen a lot of the ligaments as long as you're continuing to breathe and pulling the navel down towards the mat itself. Taking another big breath in here. And then we're gonna hug the left knee in towards the chest, keeping that right leg floating in space. And then again, the soft straightening of the right leg, pushing out the energy through the heel and the ball of the foot, inner thighs rolling down, finding that control, getting out of the hip flexor, getting into the low abs, and then softly letting that right foot release, Ekapada Apanasana, one knee hugging in. Taking another big inhalation, really unhiking the left hip. That way we can find even opening in the pelvis. Allowing for the left arm to travel out away from the body. You can always cactus the arm. Release the left shoulder head down to the mat. Inhale to lengthen. And the exhalation, gentle rolling over onto the outer edge of the right hip. Just again as far as that left shoulder can still stay grounded. Option to gaze in the direction of the left knee. Option for counter twist based upon what you need today. Again, really thinking about pulling the bottom of the left sit bone towards the inner right ankle. Take another 2 big deep rounds of breath. Contracting the low abs. Inhalation. Left knee rises back up towards the sky. Long spine. And then we'll come into half happy baby once again. Option to bend the right leg at the knee and reach for the outer edge of the sole of the left foot, stacking left ankle over knee. And remember, if you have a strap and that feels too much for the neck, the low back, you can always find your strap or whatever you're using as a strap, loop it around the ball or the sole of the foot, release the left shoulder head down, and simply find a deeper space. We tend to hold a lot of energy in our pelvis. We tend to hold a lot in our low back. It is the foundation of our spine. It is the foundation of how we lift up and out of our pelvis, how we walk. It's an energy absorber, a shock absorber when we run or we're on pavement. So we do tend to store a lot in the back body and in the base of the pelvic floor. So remembering to be active, gently thinking about almost squeezing a block together between the thighs, even though they're separated, to softly pull up on the base of the pelvic floor. If you practice that during your vinyasa, that's a root lock. It's an energy conservation center we call Mula Bandha. Taking one more big deep breath here. And then if you chose to use a strap like me, you're welcome to gently release it to the side or release the outer edge of the left foot itself. Coming into thread the needle second side, left ankle, right thigh, rolling the outer edge of the left hip down actively. You're using the obliques and the outer hips. And then maybe you're staying here, or maybe you prefer to reach up, interlace the fingers underneath the low lifted leg, keeping the foot flexed. And again, option to find a little bit of movement if you desire, option to simply stay exactly where you are. Finding another inhalation, really pulling that left knee away from the left shoulder, but not by means of pushing on the knee itself. And then with control, the soft release of the right foot back down to the mat. Gently uncrossing left ankle from right thigh. And we'll hug both knees in towards the chest for Apanasana, knees to chest pose. Movement or stillness is always your choice. Most of you guys know I've got a very, very sensitive, moderately damaged low back, so I do tend to find movement in a lot of these poses. But remember, if you're not moving like me, you don't have to. Our bodies are not made the same. That's what our practice is for, to tailor the poses for exactly what we need, not somebody else. Take another big inhale. And that big exhalation. As you release the feet back down towards the mat, maybe you can find that control again, using the low abs. And then we'll softly roll over onto our side, whatever side feels best for you. I won't lie, I could probably stay here, like not moving, for about 2 hours today. And which you can't, by the way. You can just stay there. That's always totally okay. Otherwise, we'll gently pull ourselves up and off the mat, up and off the floor. And if you chose to come into that very soft variation of supportive fish pose, you're more than welcome to unfurl your mat once again. Soft release. And if you have a bolster, a blanket, a towel, anything to help support the base of the spine, I'm going to welcome you to find that here before we find a little bit more movement. A strap is always an option, so if you have one of those, you're welcome to keep that by your side. Otherwise, we'll draw the soles of the feet all the way stretched out away from the body, flexing the feet back towards the chin itself. Lift up and out of the diaphragm. If you're going to use a strap, it'll loop around the ball or the sole of the feet, pulling the toes back towards the chin, keeping the shoulder blades flat on the back. Big inhalation to lengthen. And a big exhale as the long spine forward fold, only going as far as you're not rounding. And if you don't need the strap, don't use it. You can always take the peace fingers, grab for the big toes, and just draw a gentle amount as the chest and the sternum moves towards the knees and the ground itself. Most of you guys know that when I found yoga in kind of this athletic, obsessive sort of way. I found it about 20 years ago. And all I would do was exceptionally rigorous, really, really challenging, very, very hard athletic style practices. And if you practice my vinyasa classes, most of you guys know, my one breath, one movement classes tend to be rather athletic and rather challenging. But once I began to really find the energetics of what my body needed to balance my energy on a normal day, it was poses that for yin and restorative that really helped make me feel balanced in my body with my active vinyasa. It also allowed me to be a little bit more forgiving with mental health and begin to slow down just a little bit more so that not only I could take care of myself, but I could take care of others. Taking another big inhalation. And that big exhale. And then we'll softly drop back up and over the pelvis. If you used a strap like me tonight, my hips are so tight, my hamstrings are just little knots. You're welcome to release the strap itself. And we'll keep that left leg long and strong. Bend the right leg at the knee, sole the foot down on the mat. Either in front of or behind the knee, we don't want to compress the joint. Rolling the entire outer edge of the leg bone down and under. And if that knee pops up, or like me, if you need to come off your bolster to have the pelvis feel more even, you can. If this knee is lifting all up to high heaven, that's okay. Just place the bolster, blanket, or strap underneath so that you can find that full support. Option to find your strap once again. If so, it's going to loop around that long left leg. And the inhale will pull you out of the pelvis. The exhale is the twist. Everything rotates on the spine towards the extended toes. One more big inhalation here, Janu Shirshasana, head to knee pose. And the exhalation is the forward fold. Keeping that right hip back. Really pulling the navel in, pulling those left obliques back as well. Twists come from core. And when we move into forward folds, back bends, or twists without using our core, we tend to aggravate back conditions already. We can compress nerves. So remember, you don't have to go all the way down. It's really what's most comfortable for you this evening. Keeping that right foot flexed, gentle pressure either into the calf or into the inner thigh itself. Taking one more deep breath in here, moving through some dynamic poses so that we can go into some static and safely. Inhale back up. If you use the strap, gentle release, belly pulls in. Right knee softly lifts back up towards the sky. We'll keep that left leg extended and just gently pick the right foot up. Place it on the outer edge of that knee or outer calf. Roll onto the left hip. Bend the extended leg, keep the toes pointed. We're coming into our twist. I know that one feels very like hand on red, foot on blue. It's like a little twister pose. We're gonna first find an open twist. Left fingertips will drop behind you or on a block. Roll the left shoulder back, pick up and out of the torso. Inhalation, right arm will rise. Exhalation, open twist. The belly is still open. There's no compression on the abdomen at this particular point in time. Rooting the big toe down to the mat, keeping the left foot flexed. Crown of the head moves away from the tailbone every inhale, and the exhale maybe twists you further. Last thing to move is going to be the gaze and the neck spine itself. Big breath in here. And the gentle unfurling out of Matsyendrasana. Softly drawing back onto that left hip, straightening the left leg, coming back onto both sit bones, drawing that front shin over, extending both legs straight. Paschimottanasana, intense forward fold. Option to use the strap as before. Option to find the full length, full pose. Inhalation, drawing up and out. And the exhale, soft forward fold. Maybe reaching for the toes, maybe not. The more you can pull the pelvic floor in and up during our forward folds, the more you end up helping to protect the low back spine. As we go into forward folds, we don't want to over round or over flatten the lumbar, and we also don't want the back ribs to pop out. That just pulls on our hip flexors and makes the body even tighter, even with prolonged holds in the poses. Take another big inhale. And then gently coming back up, nice, long, and strong. Strap can be removed if you chose that option. And we'll keep the right leg long, bending at the left knee, and either again choosing to place the sole of the foot into the interior of the thigh or on the calf itself, but not compressing the knee joint. Rolling the outer edge of the entire leg bone in the hip socket. And then I'm going to use my strap tonight. I do tend to use my strap in forward folds almost always, but that's just my body and what it does prefer. So remember, you don't have to use it. Once again, inhale, pull up and out of the pelvis. We're really using the center line to be straight. Exhalation, rolling the heart towards the extended right knee. Inhale, continuing that twist. On the exhalation, Janu Shirshasana, second side. That knee will often try to lift as a compensation for the forward fold. So remember, we really want to keep that outer edge of the thigh rooted. So if it does pop up, don't ever be afraid to use a bolster. Plus our hips are usually not exactly even, so you may notice one side is a little bit tighter than the other. I often close my eyes in poses, just listening from the inside. What does the calf feel like as it pushes against the mat? The quad as it picks up off the knee. Are the glutes over contracted? Walking yourself maybe through the muscle bases just to notice, am I overworking something? Or am I just sitting in my joints if you do tend to be hyper flexible? Another big inhale here. And then using core once again, long spine, coming back up and over that knee, releasing the strap if you chose that option, gently letting the left leg rise once again. And from here, again, picking that shin up, placing it onto the outer edge of the right knee, rolling onto the side hip, bending that front leg, keep that foot flexed, coming back evenly onto both sit bones. We want the length of the spine. Right fingertips draw behind you. Make sure that shoulder's not rolling in. That hurts the shoulder joint. You want to roll the shoulder out, external rotation of the upper arm bone in the shoulder socket. Inhalation, top arm lifts, open twist, exhalation. Lord of the Fishes, 2. Sounds like a movie saga. Lord of the Fishes, 1, Lord of the Fishes 2, half Lord of the Fishes. I did not make any of those up. Those are actually names of poses. Again, noticing if you are struggling to push yourself into a pose, can the inhales lengthen you and can the exhales twist you from the inside instead of pushing the knee against the elbow? Another big inhale. And the exhale, the slow unfurl with control. Gently coming back onto the side hip, straightening the leg. Both sit bones root, removing that front foot. Stretching both feet out away from the body for just a moment. Fingertips draw to the side hips or just gently behind you. Shoulders over wrists, roll the shoulder heads back. Soft press into the mat. Keep the feet flexed. Dandasana, staff pose modification. And the exhale is the soft release. Moving into Baddha Konasana, our bound angle pose. You're welcome to use a little bolster if you desire, or if you prefer to sit flat on the mat, that's an option as well. Drawing the soles of the feet together, knees will open wide, just how we started on our back. And notice if you can really press the big toe into the big toe, little toe into the little toe. If the knees are up here, again, that's okay. That's tight hip flexors, tight outer hips. The thighs will often release, but sometimes we need support to have us do that. Option to simply stay here. Elevated spine, rolling the inner thighs up towards the ceiling. Option to take it deeper should you desire as well. You can walk the hands to the outer edges of the feet or take the peace fingers and reach for the big toes. Again, we're not forcing ourselves down. This is not pulling against any part of the body. Keeping the shoulder blades flat on the back, the elongation, the only place we're hinging from is the hips themselves. Whether you get all the way down towards the earth, whether you're all the way up towards the sky, it really doesn't matter. And please keep in mind, often when I'm looking at you, I'm kinking my neck. I'm creating an external curve so that I make sure that you can hear me. But when we're looking at the length of the spine, if I was in the full pose like you, it's the crown of my head that you would be seeing instead. Focusing on the breath. Notice if there can be activity as you draw the outer edges of the thighs down. Finding a soft release here for just a moment. Just a little pause to reset everything in the body. Just a few more rounds of breath. Maybe the exhales allow you to go deeper, maybe they don't. And then being conscious of inner thighs, outer hips, softly drawing back, up and over, letting the length of the spine happen. A moment just here to pause. Maybe the palms softly draw up towards the sky. Maybe they're resting on the shins or the thighs. What will we choose our reactions to be today? How will we react to our environment, to the words of others, to the energetics? We don't need to be distanced from other people, but I do believe we have to be conscious about the energy that we let into our spaces. Just like how we lock our cars at night and we close the door of our houses, not because we're looking to keep everything out, but because we are selective of what happens as it moves through and in our personal space. It's exactly what happens when we get bombarded with other people's energy. always our choice whether to receive it or to just allow for it to hold space. And gently moving into a little bit of a deeper outer hip opener. I'm going to show you the first version of it, which is called Sukhasana, contented space pose. But we'll be moving a little deeper tonight if that feels okay in your body. The right shin is going to draw under the left shin and create almost a little triangle if you look towards your inner thighs. Feet are flexed, aligned with the knees themselves. This is where you can stay if the hips are feeling too tight or there's too much sensitivity. Otherwise, we'll be gently reaching underneath the ankle or shin of the front foot, lifting the front foot and placing the outer ankle in front of the knee itself. We don't want to compress joints. We don't want bone on bone. If you need to resettle your little bolster underneath your sit bones, you're welcome to. And please, I highly recommend, if that top leg is lifting, that hip won't open. It just doesn't. It's a biohack in the body. It's a safety for your outer hips, your pelvic floor. So if that knee is up here, I really highly recommend supporting it. We sometimes think if we're going to force it down, it'll finally open. But we have to make sure that the body feels safe. Otherwise, it'll always tends to stay in that position. Inhalation, lifting up and out, letting the shoulder heads draw down. And the exhale is the forward fold over the thighs. And remember, you can go as deep as need be, pull back as much as you want, stay as elevated as you desire, or maybe the chest is folding all the way down to the floor. Remember, if you are folding towards the floor, you can deepen this even further by placing a bolster in front of you and releasing the forehead all the way down. Big, full, juicy round of breath in your forward fold. Then we'll walk the hands over to your right hand side. Again, if you do that and the hip lifts, grab your bolster, your blanket, anything you need to really solidify that. Otherwise, rooting that outer edge of the hip down. We want to make sure we have that foundation. Otherwise, the hips won't open evenly, keeping the feet flexed. Big inhale, lengthen. And the exhale again, that forward fold, really pulling the heart forward away from the pubic bone, letting the abs engage. They say that on the often average, an emotion, when it is invoked in the body or created with a hormone rush based upon a situation around us, an emotion is usually lasts for an average duration of 25 to 35 seconds at its peak. When we take our deeper breaths like Ujjayi or just the simple deepening of the inhale and the exhale, that tends to be between 4 and 16 counts per breath. So if we remember when we come to an external or internal challenge, circumstance, or obstacle, if we can find that moment, just enough to take 10 breaths, We'll think clear, react in a different way. We are in control of our reactions, just not other people's. Inhalation, walking the fingertips back to center. And that next exhale gently lifts you up and off of the thighs. If you've chosen to join me in double pigeon, square, fire log pose, lots of people call it different things based upon how we were trained. You'll just gently release that front ankle and shin back into contented space pose, and we'll simply switch sides. If the spine can handle being long without any support, really work on finding the space of the low abs. As you first start in Sukhasana, contented space, crossing right over left, feet will flex once again. And remember, you can stay here. Otherwise, reaching underneath for the outer edge of the shin, gentle lifting of the foot, keep that flexed, it protects your knee. Outer ankle, inner knee, drawing up and in, finding our second side. Rooting both sides of the hips down. Inhalation, lift and lengthen once again. And the exhale is that gentle forward fold, going as deep as you need, using support if that's what the body wants. The ego doesn't often like support. Speak from personal experience. I remember when I first started practicing until I was trained with one of my master teachers that has a background like I do now in therapeutics, pain management, injury management. People would say, do you want to use blocks or props or straps for your practice? I was like, no way. I was like, who does that? I was like, I'm just going to make myself do it. Force my hips down, I'm going to fold, and make sure it happens. I was very aggressive about it. The moment I realized that I could actually ask for help, that's what this is, asking for help. Can you help me so that I can release? I can't do it by myself right now. Can you help me? It allows for us to start asking for help off the mat as well, which is probably the most challenging part of my life, is asking for help. By the way, I never got over that. I'm still working on it. So if you think that I've gotten over asking for help, no, that's something I still work on in my personal practice. Big inhale to lengthen once again. And the exhale, the gentle walking of the fingertips to the opposite side. You'll really feel that right hip beginning to open, but it needs to be active. It has to be grounded. If it's lifting, we really must ask for help. I really never thought that any of us would be in this space that we are in my wildest dreams. My wildest dreams are usually very, very different than what's going on now. We live in a curious time. It's an energetic and physical reset. It can be very challenging emotionally and physically for a lot of people, but I really do think it's time to wipe the slate clean and rebuild. And sometimes you have to remove everything to do that. If you want to clean your refrigerator, you can't clean your refrigerator while all the food's in it. I mean, you could, but I wouldn't recommend it. I recommend taking everything out of your fridge and then cleaning it and then organizing it and putting it all back. Energetically, I feel it's the same concept here. Obviously, much, much more complicated than, cleaning the place where you put your kale. But you guys know me, I use food analogies. Take another big inhalation. The exhale softly walks us back to center. Inhale, lifting up and off once again. And if you've chosen to join me in the deeper version of the asana, the posture, are welcome to come gently with care back into Sukhasana, contented space. Inhale, gently sweep the fingertips up to the sky. Exhalation, just softly release them down, just having a little bit of movement of energy in the body. Inhale, palms face one another, long line. Exhalation, release. Last one. Inhale. Maybe you gaze up. If you do, tailbone down, belly pulls in. And the exhalation releases everything down by the side. Beginning to straighten the legs in front of you. Just simply roll to the side hip. You can bend the legs once again. And we're all going to meet one another on our backs on the mat. If you'd like to use any support underneath the thighs for low back sensitivity or a blanket underneath the head, you're more than welcome to. But as you find your way back down onto your back, hugging both knees in towards the chest for Apanasana, knees to chest pose. Again, option for stillness, option for movements. Your body, your choice, your energy, your practice. And from here, my friends, moving into full happy baby, full Ananda Balasana. Reaching out to grab the outer edges of the soles of the feet, stacking the ankles over the knees as the inner thighs soften towards the outer edges of the torso. If your shoulders are lifting or rounding, or your tailbone is pulling up off the mat, it's actually counterproductive in this pose. And I highly recommend reaching for the outer shins or thighs instead. Emphasis is always on the length of the spine, the core engagement, and the release of tension between the ears and the shoulders. Taking a big inhalation and a big exhale. One more here, big inhale, belly open, side ribs open. And the exhale lets everything go. Releasing the posture, the pose, releasing everything you don't need. And we find our moment of Shavasana. If you desire a different Shavasana tonight, after our practice, I can highly recommend finding legs up the wall, Viparita Karani, where you draw the sit bones against the wall on the side hip, and then gently lift the legs up the wall. No need to hold in the pelvis, maybe opening the arms. Otherwise, if you'd like to just find our classic Shavasana, taking up all the space you need, props and bolsters are there to support you. Letting the eyes close and the muscle gently soften away from bone. A moment here in silence, a moment here in peace. Beginning to gently deepen the breath. Maybe the beginnings of movements in the fingers, the jaw, legs. In your time, knees will come to the chest. We'll find our way to our sides. We pick ourselves up and off the mat to find a comfortable seated position. We are not handed obstacles physically or emotionally to crush us. We are never handed anything that we can't handle. We are always in control of our internal environment, remembering that the thought of control of the external environment is an illusion, sometimes a beautiful one, but an illusion just like that. And we continue to peel away the koshas, the layers and the veils, so that we discover what's really on the inside, both in what makes us tick, the universe move forward, and the people we can support and love around us. On a Friday, my friends, as always, I wish you a good one. Namaste. Really nice to have you, as always. Wonderful way to end the proverbial work week and begin an energetic reset for the weekend and the next day to come.